What is that? What are they saying? Story time. Are they saying story time? It is! It is story time with Uncle Scotty. Hi. Thank you for tuning in to Story Time with Uncle Scotty. I'm your host, Uncle Scotty. We have our own mugs. Hydration is important. Also important in these times. Washing our hands. Love washing my hands. My hands have never been so clean. Do you see this? Flawless. Basically, cleaner than the day I was born, because that's not very clean. Definitely cleaner than the day after that, too. Feels good. Hey, thank you for watching Storytime with Uncle Scotty. Want to give a shout out to some other of our young viewers that we see out there taking in these stories, making Uncle Scotty's face smile, chest feel real big. Shout out to young Luke out there. Luke, I see you watching these stories every night, man. Makes me so happy. Appreciate you working me in between that rigorous math schedule that you have. Man of my own heart. Appreciate that. Also, young Brooklyn, you've been with us since episode 1, since day 1. Hope you're still enjoying it. Kaylee, appreciate you watching. Young Bowen, seen you on the big screen. Appreciate that. Getting mom and dad to put it on the big screen. That's nice. See if maybe Camden wants a taste of that. So, appreciate y'all watching. As always, let me know if you have any recommendations, feedback. I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to be better. You're the way to help me be better. So, please let me know how we can do those things. Gotta put on my glasses here. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Time. Storytime with Uncle Scotty, brought to you by Time. Way to spice up your life, spice up Storytime. Time. Now, where we left off. Was it a happy day? It was a sad day? Depends. It was a big day. The peach had just set off down the hill. Centipede had cut the stem from the tree. The peach begins to roll down the steep hill. In its path, Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge, who were bad-mouthing James in a terrible way. Terrible way. Crushed by the peach. It's tough. If they were just nicer, it would have been different. They were very mean. Chapter 16. And now the peach had broken out of the garden and was over the edge of the hill, rolling and bouncing down the steep slope at a terrific pace. Faster and faster and faster it went. And the crowds of people who were climbing up the hill suddenly caught sight of this terrible monster plunging down upon them, and they screamed and scattered to the right and the left as it went hurtling by. At the bottom of the hill, it charged across the road, knocking over a telegraph pole and flattening 2 parked automobiles as it went by. Remember, this peach is huge. It's, shall we say, a giant peach. Then it rushed madly across about 20 fields, breaking down all the fences and hedges in its path. It went right through the middle of a herd of fine Jersey cows, and then through a flock of sheep, and then through a paddock of horses, and then through a yard of pigs, and soon the whole countryside was a seething mass of panic-stricken animals stampeding in all directions. What mayhem! The peach was still going at a tremendous speed with no sign of slowing down, and about a mile further it came to a village. Down the main street of the village it rolled, with people leaping frantically out of its path, right and left. And at the end of the street, it went crashing right through the wall of an enormous building and out the other side, leaving 2 gaping round holes in the brickwork. If any of you know the high C guy, that's what it was like. But bigger! This building, though, happened to be a famous factory where they made chocolate. And almost at once, a great river of warm melted chocolate came pouring out of the holes of the factory wall. A minute later, this brown sticky mess was flowing through every street in the village, oozing under the doors of houses and into people's shops and gardens. Children were wading in it up to their knees, and some were even trying to swim in it. All of them were sucking it into their mouths in great greedy gulps and shrieking with joy. Now, call a little time out here. So, this peach, rolling down the street of this town, through a building. The building happens to be a factory that makes chocolate, or should I say, a chocolate factory. Now, who do we know who has a chocolate factory? Great question. Who has a chocolate factory? Willy Wonka? Maybe? I think so. Check this out. Roald Dahl wrote this book, also wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, the peach just passed through Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. How cool is that? Kind of cool. Okay. But the Peach rushed on across the countryside, on and on and on, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Cowsheds, stables, pigsties, barns, bungalows, hayricks, anything that got in its way went toppling over like a 9-pin. It's like when you go bowling. It's like one of those pins. An old man sitting quietly beside a stream had his fishing rod whisked out of his hands, and it went dashing by. And a woman named Daisy Entwistle was standing so close to it as it passed by that she had the skin taken off the tip of her long nose. Would it ever stop? Why should it? A round object will always keep on rolling as long as it is on a downhill slope. Now, it just so happens, unexpectedly, 1 second, let's check this out. Round object, right? Peach-shaped, might even say, but way bigger. Now, round object going down a slope, not going to stop, right? Why would it ever stop? This is the peach, this is the slope, not going to stop. Why should it? A round object will always keep on rolling as long as it is on a downhill slope, and in this case, the land sloped downhill all the way until it reached the ocean. That same ocean that James had begged his aunts to be allowed to visit the day before. Well, perhaps he was going to visit it now. The Peach was rushing closer and closer to it every second, and closer to the towering white cliffs that came first. These cliffs are the most famous in all of England, and they are hundreds of feet high. Hundreds of feet high. So where you're sitting right now, look up at your ceiling. That's maybe like 10 feet, 12 feet, maybe 20 feet. So imagine 10 times that is the size of this cliff, right? So many stories up, like a huge building. Below the cliffs, the sea is deep and cold and hungry. Many ships have been swallowed up and lost forever on this part of the coast, and all the men who were in them as well. The Peach was now only 100 yards away from the cliff. Now 50, now 20, now 10, now 5. And when it reached the edge of the cliff, it seemed to leap up into the sky and hang there suspended for a few seconds, still turning over and over in the air. Then it began to fall, down, 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 down. Smack! It hit the water with a colossal splash and sank like a stone. Here you can see the Peach. These are the cliffs, hundreds of feet high. The Peach went up like a ramp, suspended in the sky before it went down, down, down. You get it. Let me go back. Smack! It hit the water with a colossal splash and sank like a stone. But a few seconds later, up it came again, and this time, up it stayed, floating serenely upon the surface of the water. Shall we do one more? Let's do one more. Let me have some tea, because you know why? That's right, hydration is important. Chapter 17. At this moment, the scene inside the Peach itself was one of indescribable chaos. James Henry Trotter was lying bruised and battered on the floor of the room amongst a tangled mass of centipede and earthworm and spider and ladybug and glowworm and old green grasshopper. In the whole history of the world, no travelers had ever had a more terrible journey than these unfortunate creatures. And for the first few seconds, as the Peach had begun to roll slowly forward, nobody had minded being bumped and tumbled a little bit. But when it went bump, and the centipede had shouted, "That was Aunt Sponge!" and then bump again, and "That was Aunt Spiker!" there had been a tremendous burst of cheering all around. But as soon as the Peach rolled out of the garden and began to go down the steep hill, rushing and plunging and bounding madly downward, then the whole thing became a nightmare. James found himself being flung up against the ceiling, and then back down to the floor, and then sideways against the wall, and then back up on the ceiling again, and then up and down and back and forth and round and round and round and round. And at the same time, all the other creatures were flying through the air in every direction. And so were the chairs and the sofa. Where did they get the chairs and the sofa? And so did the chairs and the sofa, not to mention the 42 boots belonging to the centipede. Everything and all of them were being rattled around like peas inside an enormous rattle that was being rattled by a mad giant who refused to stop. Refused to stop. Refused to stop. To make it worse, something went wrong with the glowworm's lighting system, and the room was in pitchy darkness. There were screams and yells and curses and cries of pain, and everything kept going round and round and round. And once, James made a frantic grab at some thick bars sticking out from the wall, only to find that they were a couple of centipede's legs. "Let go, you idiot!" shouted the centipede, kicking himself free, and James was promptly flung across the room into the old green grasshopper's horny lap. Twice, he got tangled up in Miss Spider's legs, a horrible business. And toward the end, the poor earthworm, who was cracking himself like a whip, whoosh, whoosh, every time he flew himself through the air from one side of the room to the other, coiled himself around James's body in a panic and refused to unwind. Oh, it was a fantastic and terrible trip. But it was all over now. It was all over now. And the room was suddenly very still and quiet. Everybody was beginning slowly and painfully to disentangle himself and herself from everyone else. "Let's have some light!" shouted the centipede. "Yes," they cried. "Light! Give us some light!" "I'm trying," answered the poor glowworm. "I'm doing my best. Please be patient." They all waited in silence. Then a faint greenish light began to glimmer out of the glowworm's tail, and this gradually became stronger and stronger until it was anyway enough to see by. And here you can see glowworm at the top. Remember? It was like a fly without wings, a little light on its tail. And then here's all of our friends and their furniture. Where'd they get the furniture? And a bunch of boots. 42 pairs of boots in one mass in the center of the floor. "Some great journey," the centipede said, limping across the room. He has a lot of legs, so a lot of limps. "I shall never be the same again," murmured the earthworm. "Nor I," the ladybug said. "It's taken years off my life." "But my dear friends," cried the old green grasshopper, trying to be cheerful, "we are there!" "Where?" they asked. "Where? Where is there?" "I don't know," the old green grasshopper said. "But I bet it's somewhere good." "We're probably at the bottom of a coal mine," the earthworm said gloomily. "We certainly went down and down and down, and then very suddenly up at the last moment. I felt it in my stomach. I still feel it. Perhaps we are in the middle of a beautiful country full of songs and music," the old green grasshopper said. Or near the seashore," James said eagerly, "with lots of other children down on the sand for me to play with." "Pardon me," murmured murmured the ladybug, turning a trifle pale. "But am I wrong in thinking that we seem to be bobbing up and down?" "Bobbing up and down?" they cried. "What on earth do you mean?" "You're still giddy from the journey," the old green grasshopper told her. "You'll get over it in a minute. Is everybody ready to go upstairs now and take a look around?" "Yes, yes," they chorused. "Come on, let's go." "I refuse to show myself out of doors in my bare feet," the centipede said. "I have to get my boots on first." "For heaven's sake, let's not go through all that nonsense again," the earthworm said. "Let's all tend to the centipede a hand and get it over with," the ladybug said. "Come on." So they all did, except Miss Spider, who set about weaving a long rope ladder that would reach from the floor up to the hole in the ceiling. The old green grasshopper had wisely said that they must not risk going out of the side entrance when they didn't know where they were, but must first go all up onto the top of the peach to have a look around. So, half an hour later, when the rope ladder had been finished and hung, and the 42nd boot had been laced neatly onto the centipede's 42nd foot, they were all ready to go out. Amidst mounting excitement and shouts of, "Here we go! The promised land! I can't wait to see it. The whole company climbed up the ladder one by one and disappeared into a dark, soggy tunnel in the ceiling that went steeply, almost vertically, upward. And we'll find out what happens next on Next Time with Storytime with Uncle Scotty. Don't forget, wash your hands, look out for each other. Hydration is important. And send thoughts, recommendations. Also, maybe if you want to, subscribe to this channel. Then you know when these new episodes are coming out. Hopefully every day. And that's it. Thank you so much. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.